At last, I'm getting to repot this Vanda. It's beginning to fall out of its pot. It's way overgrown. In fact, I'm even losing some of the flowers because it really needs refreshing. The flowering just isn't happening the way it should be. So let's have a look to see what's happening inside the pot and whether we have a conclusion as to what's been going wrong, other than it's just outgrown itself. And this is going to be quite a task. It's going to be quite heavy, but it's going to be fun to do. This is actually not a terete Vanda, although some people might call this a terete. It's actually a semi-terete. If you have a closer look in here, you will see that the leaves aren't actually that pencil shape. They look pencil shape, but they're actually not fused together. They do have a gap, and they're more of that V shape, making them a Semi-terete Vanda. Or still a Papilionanthe. Probably some intergeneric hybrid of the two, but I think it's actually a Papilionanthe. It's a slightly darker color than the Miss Joaquim, but I don't have the exact name for it. So let's get straight down to it. Let's show you what's happening and what we're going to do. So this is what it's looking like here. All this deadening of the roots around the outside of the pot. Dried up a bit, I presume, in this dryness of our winter. We can see it's as tall as I am. Just falling over, no support left. These roots hanging out everywhere, which what they'll do anyway. The roots are still pretty good, at least those ones in the air. So let's see what's happening to those roots inside the pot, whether there's the media already we can see is well down into the pot. It's almost sunk halfway, so there's not much media. It doesn't make too much difference for them. They don't need all that much media. They can actually be grown as epiphytes as well. In their native habitat, often they may start off as epiphytes, but then those roots do grow down and into the ground. And if you go into the Singapore gardens, everything, you'll see them actually planted in the ground itself, and just with large supports to keep them upright because of the height that they grow to. As you can see, these are relatively quick growing orchids compared to a lot of others. Let's refresh the media, make sure it's got enough feed that it can absorb in through the roots as well, and perhaps we can stop these flowers from aborting. The wonderful thing about these Semi-terete Vandas is that, or Papilionanthes, is that they can grow all year round if your climate is right. We do have a little bit of green tip root growth here. That's probably because it's been getting just enough water in that section. If it had been getting water all over, I'd still have green root tips just about everywhere. But we can see, there's a couple here and there, but a lot of the others are, there's some more. A lot of the others are deadened and dried out. That's just because of our low humidity at the moment. The root is a little bit wrinkled, means it's a little bit dehydrated, but that's not what is actually causing this poor orchid to lose its blooms or abort the blooms. I think it's the fact that it really needs to be refreshed. Okay, while we're making a mess, the pots are making a mess on the deck anyway. So, let's see if we can, oopsie, who are we stuck on? Oopsie, everyone's rooting into each other. So I'm not going to be very gentle at all. I'm just going to pull all of these roots straight off of the pot. None of that soaking and things that I do with cattleyas. Oopsie, I'm going to break everything off. Careful my other plants, eh? Now it's going to be the tough part. Let's see if we can get this out. There we go. Oh. Okay. Well, there's what's left of the media in the bottom. We've got some good root growth at the bottom under there. So we'll just knock out some of that soil. Okay, there's a lot of, or not a lot, there's some dead roots in amongst the new root growth, well, the live root growth here. But I don't want to disturb that too much, so I'll just tease out some of the soil. This way we can also get rid of any of those weeds that might have been growing inside the pot as well, which is quite often, especially when you use these soil-based mix that I use with these Papilionanthes. I should really do this a lot more often than I do, although because for one, they're going to be hardy enough, they're really not going to mind the repotting, and if you do it more frequently, you're going to have less of a struggle getting it out the pot, because then it's not going to be so root bound and the roots aren't going to be bound to the pot. And then also you might have fewer weeds. Weeds! What's that high squeak for? Okay, that weed is rooted right into the base around all the other roots. Okay, while we're working around the base here, let me just show you the difference between the roots that grow into the soil and the roots that grow in the air. Here we can see those roots that are growing in underneath the soil. Instead of having green root tips, they often have these little more yellowishy color. Those are all still alive and healthy. So we want to keep all of those. And I don't want to mess around too much, but I do want to get those weeds out. So it's going to be a little bit of a hum and haw to see what we can do to get the best result. There we go. That's all the ones that are coming out. So I want to get as much of this out as possible. I could do it another way, which is what a lot of other people will do, is they'll just go straight in here, straight in at this point here, and cut the whole lot off. We have all this root volume from the top coming down, and that will then enter the soil as well and redo what is happening here. I can do that. I don't want to do that, especially this time of the year. We're still in winter here. We're sort of heading towards just past the middle of winter. Not the perfect time to be repotting this. Really, I want to be doing this probably in spring, as that new growth really starts off and you see all those new root shoots happening in spring or summer even, and then those roots can really grow quickly. But I've got a chance now to do it. I can still keep these growing as we see those new root tips that are still viable. It's not going to be growing as fast as it will during those warmer periods of the year, but it's still going to keep going. So I don't want to lose all of that root volume at the bottom. Our humidity levels are low, so let's try not to cause too much damage. Okay, I think that's it for now. If I keep trying to fight with the roots, I may as well just chop that whole bottom off and let it all start again. So I'm going to leave it as it is. Just go around, pull off any of those. Whoopsie. See what happens. There's a lot of live roots amongst the dead ones. So Just try and clean up some of those old dead roots around here and there. You can go in with your secateurs and be careful about it. I just want to get this guy back in as quickly as possible now. Okay, we're going to be potting him into the next size pot up, from there to there. And this should give him a good few more years growth. Probably I should be repotting every 2, 3 to 5 years. I often leave them a lot longer, and that's why they'll end up becoming a little bit hectic. Okay, let's get down to repotting. Also, the big pot is going to help with producing enough weight so that a plant this size doesn't just get blown over in the wind continually. So let's start off with a few things to add that extra weight in. We'll use some stones at the bottom because we have lots of holes in the bottom of our pot, and we don't want the soil mix that we're going to be using to run straight out. People can say that you can use bark and that at the bottom. That will help keep the soil in. It will cover those holes so the soil can't run out the holes, but allow the water to run through. The only problem is, as the bark decomposes, it starts causing problems, because then you start getting blockages of those holes. So it almost forms like a hard soil mat at the bottom as that bark decomposes, and that helps keep too much moisture or too much water in your pot for too long, which then starts causing problems with the roots. So always a good idea, the stone. Also, the stone at the bottom is going to help give it extra weight. So you can put as much as 1/3 of your pot stone, or even more if you want to, but then it starts becoming really, really difficult to move. Also, with the soil that I'm putting in is also weighty, so it's going to start making it too heavy for me to manage. So I'm just putting a thin layer of stone around the bottom. That river sand just flowing straight through the bottom of the pot. So that gives away part of my mix already, is stone and river sand. The other part is a good quality compost or a potting soil, whichever one you prefer. You can use either. If you're going with a potting soil, then perhaps you want to add a little bit of kraal manure. Kraal manure is just cow manure, basically. It's generally a mix of manures from a farm area. So you may want to add that little bit of extra manure if you're using potting soil. But I've got a compost here, which is a rough compost, if you want to put it that way. It's still quite barky. And then I've got my bark that I'm going to be adding to the mix as well, just to help lighten it up, make sure that I have enough drainage. So also that river sand is going to help add that extra drainage. So let's get down to repotting. Okay, there's my compost. Don't look at the mess on the floor. And then the bark. This is a mixed grade bark. There's large, medium and small sizes all together. So with this sort of repotting, it really doesn't matter that you just have a single grade of bark. You can just add it mixed. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 parts river sand. And it's all running out of the bottom. Where can I put this? One, two, three parts compost. And and 3 parts bark. But I'm going to be adding more to this to make enough for my pot. Also to this mix you can add just some of that pure stone if you want to, if you need a heavier pot. Also that will help increase the drainage. So depending on what sort of area you're in, if you are in a hotter, rainier area or an area that gets more constant, continuous rain, then perhaps you want to add a lot more of the stone. Then you could even go as far as using 3 parts of stone into the mix as well. We can see how shallow the root system is into the pot. So I can't just go plonk. Well, I could if I wanted to, but it will just rot half of those roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it about half, or should I say, I'll fill it up to about 1/3 and then start filling in around the roots. So there we go, we'll fill it into about 1/3. And I often like to plant these with bone meal, but I don't have bone meal at the moment itself. So I have these organic pellets which do have bone meal in them. So I'll be adding these in at this point. Into that part of the media. And this is a slow release, so it will slowly release the food, all that nitrogen, calcium, potassium, all that blah, blah, blah. All going to slowly release it to the plant. And being organic, it's not going to burn the roots at all. So that's going to be about right. What we're going to do is we're going to tuck all of these roots into the pot, all the way around. And look what I've got. A nice big bamboo stake. Going to help keep it upright, make me feel like I'm a kung fu master. But it's not what I'm here to show you. Okay. And we'll try to get that in as close to the center of the pot as possible. I'm not going to push it through our orchid, but I am going to push it through down to the bottom of the pot through those stones and that media that's in already there. And hopefully if I've done this right, this is going to be stable enough to keep it upright without it flopping over like we showed you originally. Okay, let's get into filling around the rest of the pot. Okay, all there already, it's already standing a bit by itself. The one thing that you do have to be aware of when you're mixing a media like this and putting it into your pot, especially that you've got all those bark chips in it. So I showed you it run through the bottom of the pot. The same is going to happen now here between the roots. So you've just got to be aware that you want to try and not just have sand in at the bottom of the roots. You want to allow for some of that bark to get in there too. So you may have to just work some of that bark in, because we still want that bark to allow for those air spaces that are going to keep those roots healthy. So you're just going to have to go in and work some of that bark in and then fill on top of it with that mix again. Okay, so that's actually, I don't know why I didn't say that in the first part. 1 part of each. 1 part river sand, 1 part potting soil or compost, and 1 part of bark. I'm making such a mess in this deck, I'm going to be in such trouble. Okay, the only part I've been doing that would be considered compacting is actually pushing some of those bark pieces in between the roots as I add in the extra sand. That's not really compacting the mix, because that's not really what we want to do, but we are going to give it a shake to settle it in. It's going to help keep everything a little bit more stable. Help keep my stay upright. And then all it's going to be a matter of is tying this to the stay so that it stays upright. As easy as that. We should get some new blooms starting once this poor baby's settled down a bit. The little bit of shock's going to put it into recovery mode first before it will then start to bloom. And then we should have some blooms coming by spring. Okay, let me clean up this mess here a bit, and then I'll give you a close-up of what we've done here. So we'll just clean them up a bit later. We'll cut off all those old dead flower spikes, tie them up, but this is what he looks like now. A world away from what he was a bit earlier, falling out of his pot. So just as easy as that. It's just a matter of getting down and doing it. And that's the fun part of growing orchids anyway, is getting our hands dirty. And if you need any further detailed information on the cultivation of these, remember Ed's posted up more than 100 articles in that Buy Me a Coffee link. So be sure to go down there, have a look. They're easy to follow. They're a constant resource that you have available to you that you can just click on and find and remind you of anything that you may have forgotten. So jump down to that link provided in the description box below and check out any other information. If you want to ask any other questions, drop them in the comments box below. We'll be sure to get back to you. And thank you for watching. If you have found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.